Welcome to the third part of my video series about high security lockpicking. This part will be about mistakes and problems you can face during the process of gutting, reassembly, and between the gutting and the moment that you have picked the lock. So the very first point is do not turn the core too far. Some locks, like this Evva 3KS, have two sidebar mechanisms and actually have several rotational points where they might re-engage fully or just one sidebar. For example, if you turn this 90 degrees, this sidebar will re-engage. If you turn it 180 degrees, both will re-engage, and another 90, it will lock one sidebar again. If you shake it too much and the sliders will will move from the pick position. So that's not the only lock. There are plenty of locks which have this problem, so do not turn the core too far. Just a few degrees, and that should be enough. The next part is on high security locks, do not use one of these for fun. Sometimes I do because I know I can slide it off backwards and I have no problems, but if you're not sure, you shouldn't do it. And the next part is if you gut locks with a springy sidebar, spring-loaded sidebar pins or finger pins, then you should keep the key inside or put your thumb above here when you pull out, or where you expect these side pins to come out when you pull out the core, because there's a spring just ready to launch them into orbit or in your eye, I don't know. So be careful with this. The next part is it's very difficult to find springs for the side pins or for the sidebar. So if you rotate the core to a point where the sidebar can come out, keep your thumb also there, because on the sidebar there are really, really tiny springs that it's hard to get again if you lose them. And it's very easy to lose them if you're on a carpet or whatever. Then you will never find them again if they land there. So the first part is how can I get my core stuck, or how can I prevent it? So here's a great example of drill protection. So here's usually drill protection inside, but it's not flat on the core. So that's why it's offset by half a chamber from the real pins. But the problem is that if you have the core rotated just this much and you have these pins just between the driver pins and you pull the core out, then the driver pins are just waiting to get into the chamber and get stuck there. So that's the first chance or way how to get your core stuck, because once inside you have no access to this chamber, and you would have to do something cruel like this and file off the first pins to empty the chambers and are able to pull out the core. So there's another way which is even worse. Like, this is why I had to file out 4 chambers, and that's because these key pins here, these sidebar pin chambers, they are just right to get another pin stuck in here, and that's because and usually, so that's a sidebar you should expect. Here it is. So not snag the sidebar springs. So that's because these key pins here are also, let me focus, are also offset by half a chamber. Here it's half a chamber offset, and if I turn it exactly to this position and pull the core out, after half a chamber of pulling out, I get many chambers stuck. So that's something you should be aware of. So, and you definitely need to pull them out, because if the key is inserted, you have no access to the side pins to push them up or somehow get the pins out of there. So that's another danger. And you see, when you're talking or whatever on camera, you are always very likely to miss something. So you should do something a couple times before doing it on camera, because you're just not thinking about everything. So what angles should I avoid? The first is 0, because if I have a core that is made for more pins, like 7 pins and only has 6 pins inside, or I'm progressive pinning it, which will be probably the next video, then I pull out the core, get the empty 7th chamber on the plug to eat this pin and get stuck. So that's also a problem we should try to avoid. So we don't have 0 degrees of rotation. So let's say this is the keyway upright. So do not pull it out like this. Also don't pull it out like this, because you might have drill protection. And also don't pull it out like this if the side pins are here. So that's the first you should stop. Then there's a way to get rid of this. It's shimming. You're just shimming from the back, because from the front the locks are protected usually. On this particular lock, the tolerances are so tight that I can get my shim in if I have a plug follower in there, but not if I have the core in there. So that's why I had this mistake. So always shim if it's possible. And there's another thing that I almost forgot. You have at the end of the plug, you have some cuts here like these. So if you turn your core like this and pull it out here, there's exactly here a part which is very happy to eat one of your pins and get the core stuck. So also be aware of this. But if you're shimming, you're almost safe. So then there are a few problems which you have, maybe if you have picked a lock or you're reassembling it and suddenly the key won't work. So there are a few different things that might be the reason for this. So the first is construction keying. That's not that common, but for example, a DOM system D has this. So there are some holes drilled here which are smaller than these. And if you're turning, have a different key in here, which is pushing a small ball bearing ball here outside of the plug, then these chambers here are willing to eat this ball and the previous key wouldn't work anymore. So this is something you should be aware of, but it's very rare that this happens. So the next thing is confusion during reassembly. Let's say you pull out the core somehow like this. If your key pins fall out and you put them back how you think it is, but don't really check it, then you might have your key also not working, which is very logical. So another more tricky problem is usually with dimple locks that you have different side pin types. For example, Evva is using on the XP20S different sizes, but very, very similar. You almost can't see it by eye on the side and on the top pins. So there's a difference which makes the key not going in anymore if you don't try it during reassembly. The easiest way to be sure is to insert the key and then push in the plug, because if the key is inserted and you can push in the plug and see that all pins are flat, you're almost 100% or let's say 98% sure that you don't mess up. The next part is some locks like the ESSA Twin, for example, Twin 6000, for example, they have the bitting on the sidebar, and some have an asymmetric sidebar like the V10 BSV from Icon. So there it's important that you put in the sidebar like this and not like this. Then you have a different bitting and the key won't work either. So try always to insert the plug with the key inside, and in any case watch the plug really, really closely if the key is inserted. The best thing is to do it in this cylinder, in this plug holder, sorry, and just check if everything is smooth and works. So here you can see the sidebar also works because I can rotate it in here. So I know this is okay and can go back into the log or Bible. So the next part is the core won't turn anymore. That I already covered. It's, for example, like 90 degrees here, or on a carber it's like 30 or 20 degrees and it gets stuck. Another problem might be trap pins, but I won't cover these since they are very, very rare. The next part is also very important because at some point it just will happen. You will lose parts like sidebar springs or sidepin springs, or you just mess something up and are missing a few pins. So you should, in the first part, don't work on a ground where you can't find anything like a carpet or whatever. Then you have some problems with special locks like the 3KS. And I already took out these C-clips. They are here. By the way, it has two, this one, and the core still won't come out. If I insert the key, it also won't come out at any position. That's because of the way the sliders are inside. They act a tiny bit like wafers and prevent the key from pulling the lock out. So a trick I can do is pull out the key with the lock sideways. So at this part here, all sliders are brought more or less to the middle. And now I can pull out the core and I can show you why. So here you can see on all the sides there are openings that allow the sliders to come out. And now if I have the key inside or gravity pulling the slider down, you can see the slider maybe here to stick out of the core here. And this grabs these notches here and or these grooves and prevents me to get the core out. So, and if I turn the lock sideways and pull out the key, I can get it like it should be. All the sliders are in the core. Now I can also press them and get the lock back inside. And always make sure to not put in the lock upside down or whatever. Usually if you can get it in, you can also get it correctly. Now if I drop the pins again, the core won't come out again.